Hey, it's your old comic book pal, Chuck Dixon. Welcome back to another edition of Drive Time. I do these by request from you folks who say that you like me keeping you company while you do something more important than what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm sitting next to you in the car while you're driving to work or home. Maybe I'm, leaning on the tool bench while you're working the drill press. I don't know. I don't know what you're doing. Maybe you're sitting in your cubicle pretending to work while you're listening to me. But you're actually checking your eBay. Any case, I got a bunch of different subjects today, a couple of minor things and that have happened or occurred to me in recent weeks, and then another more in-depth subject, or at least I think it's in-depth. In any case, in a recent last week's video, I talked about Dark Horse, and somebody asked me what Dark Horse was like. Um, you know what? Maybe that's next week's video. Anyway, I banked a bunch of these. Any case, in that video, be it in the past or in the future, Marty, um, I talked about Dark Horse, and the question was, what was Dark Horse like? And I answered that. And I'm not going to answer it again here. But one thing I forgot to mention, because they also asked what was Dark Horse's reputation amongst the comic book community, comic book creator community, and I gotta say, it's not really that great. They've got their darlings. They've got their certain people that they shower uh, good fortune on, yeah, and not without reason, like Mignola and other people. But largely, they're seen as the most Hollywood of all of the independent publishers, and by that I mean they will delay giving you answers. You can pitch to them, and the pitch process is obscure and arcane, and only they know how it works. And you pitch things to them, and they pretend interest the way in Hollywood they always pretend interest. You could scribble something in crayon on a post-it note and show it to a Hollywood producer, and you go, this has possibilities. And then he immediately forgets your name as soon as he climbs into the limo, but or exits the elevator. And Dark Horse, in recent years, and I mean, the last 2 decades, has pretty much operated this way, where they always act like they're interested in what you're pitching to them, and they'll give you an answer after they've considered it. And it's like a process. It's the same all the time. 6 months later, after they've considered it, they say no, and they don't give you any reason for that. Case in point, Joe Frankenstein. When Graham and I wanted to do Joe Frankenstein, we presented it to Dark Horse as a creator-owned project, and they seemed very, very interested, and they liked it a whole lot, and they had nice things to say about it, and said that they were going to take it under consideration. They were going to consider it and give us an answer. 6 months later, we got our answer. The answer was no, and no further explanation. It was like dealing with Amazon, or YouTube or Facebook. There's no explanation why. We don't owe you any further elaboration on why we said no. It's just no. It's one thing, you know. I mean, Graham and I have been in the business a long time. We have a track record of success. I mean, we deserved a little bit more than no. I mean, even a bullshit excuse like this doesn't fit our editorial policies at this time, or the most frequent one. Yeah, we're working on something very similar to this right now. Heard that one a million times. Instead of a polite no, it was just a no. No further elaboration at all. As if we were a couple of grasping, wannabes begging to get into the business. I mean, number one, we weren't doing Joe Frankenstein because we needed to do Joe Frankenstein to pay the rent. We had other assignments, could take other assignments. Graham and I were both busy with other stuff. We wanted to do Joe Frankenstein. Ultimately, we did. The payday was a long time coming because, we produced this thing on almost no money. Our first crowdfunder sucked. Barely raised anything. Now Graham is a crowdfunder king. Talk about lessons learned. This guy had the sharpest learning curve ever on crowdfunding, and now he's hugely successful. But it was many, many years before we saw any real money. And of course, I never saw any money, and I didn't want any money because Graham drew the whole damn thing for like $1,500. It's crazy. I wasn't about to say, hey, where's my page rate? Uh, so I just waited patiently, and was well rewarded. Graham's been very, very fair on the royalty front. He acknowledges that we co-own the franchise, even though he does most of the work. Any case, Dark Horse owed us a little bit more than that. Generally, when the movie business wants to take your property off the shelf, which, denying anybody an answer on a pitch for 6 months is basically doing that. Usually Hollywood, pays out a little bit of money so they can hold the property for a period of time. Dark Horse and comic books in general, they don't pay options. They don't do that. They can just go nod and go, yes, this has, we like this. We might want to publish this. So we're gonna take a good hard look at this. Thank you for bringing it to us. And that's all that costs them to hold on to the property for however long they want before they say no. Now, Graham and I aren't alone in this. I've heard this from many, many, many creators who've been, spent months and months in turnaround hell thinking Dark Horse was actually going to publish their property after showing interest. The worst that I can think of is I know a licensor who literally has thousands of comic book pages of a very popular license. And Dark Horse has promised to publish these comics. And they've been promising for over 10 years. They always keep saying, well, the time isn't right now. Well, if an entire decade or more has passed and the time isn't right, then the time's never going to be right. That's the other one they tell you, the time isn't right now. The absolute craziest one to go off on a tangent I've ever heard is a good friend of mine pitched a really, really great idea to DC Comics. And the editor said, you know what, we're going to save this one till we need a home run. This is the comic book business. Don't you need a home run, a hit every month? When do you not need a home run? When has a baseball team ever said, yeah, we're not gonna put you in till we need a home run? No, we need a home run frickin' now. We need a home run yesterday. Anyway, tangent over. So this is the reputation Dark Horse has amongst creators. If one of them wants to contact me and defend this, good luck. I'll get back to you in 6 months. Now, another little funny thing that happened was, a Working Man came out, and I stayed in contact with all the production people at MGM and Black Bear and Balboa and all the people involved in bringing this movie to life. And at one point, my sons kept pestering me. Isn't there like stuff? Isn't there swag? Aren't there tchotchkes? I'm like, yeah, there probably are. So I contacted a number of people, and a guy at Black Bear got back to me, very nice guy at Black Bear. He contacted MGM Amazon, and this enormous box showed up. And in it were really nice stuff. There were some coolers, like igloo coolers with the Working Man logo on them. There were little hard hat keychains that were also a bottle opener. And there was a tool belt. There were a whole bunch of like Solo cups with the movie poster on them. And nicest of all was, there was about 5 Carhartt work vests with the Working Man logo and embroidered on them. I mean, really cool. But then I started seeing offered on eBay other swag that I wasn't aware of. A really nice ball cap with the logo embroidered on it, and then a kit that went out to the press. The stuff they sent me was stuff they gave away at the movie theaters. But on eBay, I saw this really neat press kit and had all really, really cool stuff in it. And I was like, hey, how about one of them? Could you get me one of them? And the very nice guy at Black Bear said, well, I'll talk to MGM Amazon again. And he did. And about a week later, a stack of boxes, cartons, big ones, taller than me, showed up on my doorstep. And it was all the same stuff I got before. Very nice of them. Very nice of them. I'm not complaining. But it was more vests, more coolers, more tool belts, more hard hat bottle openers. Oh, I'm like, what am I going to do about these things? And my wife already gives me a hard time because people send me things. They give me, goofy things, and I put them on the shelf and enjoy looking at them. And my wife always says, "Stop accepting things from people." It's like, I can't tell people not to send me gifts. I mean, how rude is that? Well, you have so much junk. You have so much crap. I do. My office is just top heavy with, tchotchkes and statues and action figures and toy soldiers and stuff like that. Check out my office tour as proof. That's a video that's available here on the YouTube. But so you should stop accepting things. I'm looking at this carton of boxes, literally taller than me, and I'm like, she can't see these. So I don't even bring them in the house. I immediately begin repacking them and addressing labels to send them to other people. And they were nice. Some of them were nice enough to send pictures. If you're watching this, here's Graham Nolan, the multi-talented Graham Nolan, modeling his A Working Man Carhartt vest. I think I sent him some other stuff too. I can't remember. And then here's Mike Barron, the fabulous Mike Barron, a man in whose shadow I work every day, wearing his vest. I had to guess on sizes, but they look pretty good, don't they? Mike looks pretty snazzy here. And here's Jared Mitchell, the Reverend Jared Mitchell, who is my number one fan. And I should, unlike Dark Horse, elaborate more on who Jared Mitchell is and why is he your number one fan. You might be listening to this saying, "But Chuck, I thought I was your number one fan." Well, you're not. Jared is a Baptist minister from, so he's in good with God. That helps. That helps his ranking. And he, I've seen a lot of conventions. One time he got some frequent flyer miles and just flew down to Tampa with his son to have lunch with me. He bought me lunch. And it's just as a goof. I mean, I'm sure they went other places. I'm sure they went to the beach and everything else. But he said the main reason he wanted to come down was to hang out with me. And I brought, my sons along, and we had a great lunch. And but what really makes Jared number one is he does my stats. He's the one who determined that I was the most prolific, or I am the most prolific comic book writer in American comics. And he firmly established that with the stats. And he updates them. Recently, he sent me an update PDF updating that I'm creeping up to 50,000 pages of comics written. I mean, that's thousands of comic books I've written. Blowing Stan Lee and Paul S. Newman and all the rest way out of the water. I am far ahead. No one's going to catch up for a long time, not even Garth Ennis. So for that, he is my number one fan. He even took a swing at the Guinness Book of World Records to try to get me in there. That's how dedicated this man is. Jared, you are aces in my book. By the way, I offer this stuff all the time. If you want to see the stats, I have the PDF. I'm perfectly willing to share it. I'm perfectly willing to prove to anybody who doubts that I am the most prolific American comic book writer of all time. I will send you the PDF. What do you have to do? If you're a longtime listener, you already know. Send a donation to St. Jude's Hospital for Children. They do great work. Jared would approve, I'm sure. They take kids who are in the most dire straits of cancer and other conditions, and these are kids who are staring the Grim Reaper in the face, and they have a fantastic record of saving these children's lives. And the greatest thing about it is their parents, their distressed, traumatized parents, never receive a bill. Nobody ever pays a dime for anything at St. Jude's Hospital for Children. So if you send a donation, you email me at Bruno Bookstore and let me know you dropped a few bucks on a worthy cause, and I'll send you that PDF, and you can see for yourself. No American comic book writer has ever written, or English, or I'm going to throw that out there, or Irish. I'm looking at you, the Scots. None of you beat me. You're going to have to run to catch up, and you're going to have to run for a really long time. Oh, God. Okay. Now, my topic for the week, main topic here, is if you have kids, I have kids, what do you do? What do you're older than them, and you're going to like stuff that they don't care about. And they're going to like stuff that you wonder why the hell they like it. And there's a reason for that, because every generation wants something that's their own. I mean, my dad thought the comic books I read were for morons, you know. So I generally liked everything he liked. So, any case, this week's topic is the cultural divide, and how do you bridge it with your kids? Now, when my kids were little, we let them watch, a lot of different stuff. We didn't want to let them watch pure crap, you know, but they watched, the Animaniacs. My Neighbor Totoro, I think, was on constant replay for months. And I'm not going to complain because it's a great movie. I would sit down with them, at any point in the movie and watch it for a while and enjoy it. So at least they had good taste in the things they were repetitively watching. They weren't watching, some Aladdin sequel over and over again, or Barney the dinosaur. They liked good stuff. They liked engaging stuff. And, they were into SpongeBob. SpongeBob came along just at the right time. And I thought SpongeBob was funny too. So my wife and I both would sit and watch SpongeBob with them. But we wanted something more. We wanted to make sure they were well-rounded. And so early on, 3 years old, whatever, we started showing them older movies in black and white. And because they were kids and didn't know any different, as far as they knew, these movies were made last week, because they were children with no understanding of time or the past or anything else at this point. They just watched them. Laurel and Hardy, Bringing Up Baby. They loved Bringing Up Baby. A whole bunch of other stuff that we showed the kids, and they dug it, and they absorbed it. And they still today have very eclectic taste in everything, all kinds of culture. And of course, when they were in the car with me, they listened to my music. So that's the music they were exposed to. Just like when I was a kid, I listened to my dad's music. And my dad was real into country western. And here I was, a kid living in the Philly suburbs. What did I know? My only exposure to country western music was my dad. There was no country western music radio station on the air. There was no country western TV shows at the time. Hee Haw was many, many years away. So anyway, so we exposed the kids. And I remember I was waiting at the deli counter at Whole Foods. Boy, is there anything more white, bougie middle class than waiting at the deli counter at Whole Foods? So I'm waiting there, and this other woman's waiting, and she's ahead of me, and she's got a little kid in the cart, and the kid is watching something on a device. And the woman basically says to the universe, I hate this thing he's watching, whatever it was. I wish he didn't like this. I wish he'd watch something else. I really hate this. And I said, well, I spoke up and I said, you should, he's young enough, you can expose him to all kinds of things. You can show him, and I started making suggestions. And she said, well, he won't watch anything in black and white. To which I said, you're going to cheat him of the Marx Brothers? And I saw, it's very rare when you say something to someone that it basically is a revelation. At least I don't spread revelations around all the time. But this woman reacted like she'd never thought of that. She'd never thought of all the things she liked that her child wouldn't like because they weren't exposed to them early enough. And I explained that we exposed our kids to stuff at an early age, things we thought were enriching and enlightening and things we thought they would enjoy. And this happened when I was a kid. I mentioned my dad before. We lived in a little tiny row home. They call them townhouses now. This was a row home, and it was small. Rooms were small. 3-bedroom house. My room was almost my walk-in closet in my house today is literally bigger than the room I have, and I'm not living in a mansion. The room I grew up in was tiny. My dad even built like a railroad berth type bed. So, anyway. In the basement, my dad was a gunsmith part-time when he wasn't working for Burroughs Computers. So on weekends and evenings, he'd be down in his workshop in the basement. One Saturday afternoon, my dad's in the basement. I'm upstairs reading comic books. I don't know where my mother and sisters were. We were alone in the house. and I'm up there, reading comic books or whatever. And I hear my dad on the basement stairs rushing up. I mean, he's rushing up those stairs like the basement caught fire. He discovered a crocodile in his workshop. So he runs up the stairs, bangs open the basement door, comes racing out of the kitchen, and says, "Put on channel 10, put on channel 10." So I'm like, okay, I put on channel 10. Now, back in those days, children, TV took a while to warm up. So on the screen comes the beginning of a movie. The credits are still running. And I said, "What's this?" And he goes, it's a movie. You'll love it. And then he goes back down the basement. And it was To Be or Not to Be. And it was a wartime comedy starring Jack Benny and Carol Lombard. And I loved it. I loved it. It had, it was making fun of Hitler and the Nazis. And it's a really funny movie if you've never seen it. It's an Ernst Lubitsch classic, propaganda comedy, satire, parody, whatever you want to call it. And I really dug it. And my dad would every once in a while do that. He didn't do it all the time, but every once in a while. I remember he allowed me to stay up late to watch Forbidden Planet because he said, "I know you'll love this," which of course I did, still do. So these are the things you got to share with the kids. If you got young kids, maybe your kids are older now and you didn't get to them soon enough, and they're watching crap that you're like, "Oh my God, why? What did I do wrong?" So flip side, I'm a dad now, right? And I'll tell you two stories that prove that I this is my vindication video. Prove that my wife and I raised our kids right. These two stories, and one is that we were in line. My two boys. My son at the time was probably 13. My other boy was 9. And we're in the popcorn line at the multiplex. We're waiting to get popcorn before the movie starts. And ahead of us in line is this older couple. By older, I mean my age now. And the old guy's wearing a really nice Stetson cowboy hat. And he's wearing an awesome Western yoke shirt. It's all decorated with, embroidered flowers on the yoke and, oyster shell buttons and all, piping. It's just a really, really nice Western shirt. Must have cost the guy a fortune. And I complimented him. I said, "That is an incredible shirt." And he said, "Oh, thank you, thank you." And I said, "So are you really into Westerns?" Obviously. I go, yeah. He says, "Ever since I was a kid." He goes, "I got all kinds of autographed pictures of all the Western stars. I got Roy Rogers. I got this one. I got that one." He tells me all these autographed pictures. Must have been an awesome collection. All these autographed pictures he has of all the old time cowboy stars and everything else. And I said, "Man, that's great." My oldest boy said, "Do you have Randolph Scott?" And the guy goes, "No, I don't." "Wait a minute. You know who Randolph Scott is?" And I said, "Yeah, my wife and I raised them right." And the guy was just astounded that this young kid knew who Randolph Scott was. Not only knew who he was, had seen a bunch of his movies and understood who Randolph Scott was. Much like the townsfolk in Blazing Saddles. So the other story to prove that we did right by our children is my youngest. He in his adolescent years, this is a few years later, had grown his hair out. We just let him. What the hell? He was homeschooling and everything else, and I grew my hair out at that age. So he just let him grow his hair out, and it got down to his shoulders, and he decided, I want to do something with my hair, right? And I want to get a haircut. My wife, of course, is encouraging this. Women in hair, they go nuts. So he, I find out that he's been looking at pictures, and I'm like, what did I do wrong? Where did I fail? My son is looking at haircut pictures for men, and it's like, what would possess him to do that? How did he even glom on that? This isn't something I brought him up to do. Women do this. Men don't do this. And any of you who are gender confused, don't even bother. But he says, "I have a picture of the haircut that I want to have, that I want to get." Right. And I'm like, "Oh God, what did I do? What did I do wrong?" Right. And he's getting ready to go to the barber's. And I said, "Well, let me see the picture." He shows me the picture. It's a picture of Johnny Cash. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's good. You look good. Yeah, that's a good cut." So anyway, there you go. You know what? I talk so much about my dad. I think I'm going to do a video on my dad. If you think that's a good idea, please mention it in comments. because that's a hell of a story. That might be a couple of drive times talking about my dad. So that's it. Thanks for listening. If you watched, you saw some pictures of stuff, and I will see all of you down the road. I hope, and watch the drill press. Keep the fingers away.